What's going on, everybody? We're back for a normal episode of the Crane Kicks Lex podcast. We've had so many special episodes here lately. It feels weird to just be on and be like, hey, it's normal. Well, I guess it's not that normal because we got a new face with us, and we'll get to that. But so it's in some ways it's special, a special edition episode. But there's just a lot to talk about, and it feels weird that there's so much to talk about because we're getting ready to go into a winter break. The championship team's not even really a thing yet, but we do have a new coach that we're going to talk about on the pod a little bit. First impressions, kind of how we're feeling, and all that good stuff, along with the Super League action from this past weekend after the extended break. Which kind of still wish we were on a little bit of a break and come back ready. But that's okay. We got another week coming. Dylan is back with us. Kyle's going to be joining us here in a little bit. I still haven't found out a good joke besides the marathon thing, that running joke that we keep using. Yeah, I heard you chuckle, Dylan. Yeah, you couldn't resist. Yes. All right, good. All right, that hit. I know somebody else out there's laughing. It's okay. Dylan, how you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing pretty well. Been playing some video games lately. We were talking about Marvel Rivals. It's been really fun to play that. Been playing OG Fortnite just dropped this past weekend, so been getting back into that with some friends. The boys are riding again. The boys are back in town. Thin Lizzy song, play it. So that's been really good. Tyler, how are you doing? I'm gonna ask you first. I'm gonna get
Good.
out. I'm gonna get out in front of it.
Yeah, I downloaded Marvel Rivals last night too because I don't get a lot of game playing time. If I do, it's more like my son wants to have me teach him the old ways by whooping him in Super Smash Brothers over and over again, and then him being like, "How are you doing that, Dad?" And I'm like, "Shh, I was there when the magic was written." So but I did get
Get,
that downloaded.
get
Stayed
ready
up
to
too
learn
late.
Falcon Punch.
Yeah, get ready for Falcon Punch, buddy. No, but I stayed up a little bit messing around with Rivals. It's really fun. I'm excited to kind of let that be my just pick up, play a few minutes, and then say see ya type of game. It's really good for that. And I'm like a Moon Knight. Moon Knight's kind of my guy right now. I'll test out some other people, but I do like his vibe and his move sets and all that good stuff. And I plan on putting in decent amount of time. It's a good pick up and put down game. That's what I like about that. As a parent, you don't have a lot of time to just sit there and be like, all right, I'm ready to sit through all these cutscenes, and in an hour I'll play 5 minutes for another set of cutscenes. It's nice when you find these types. But I'm good. I also noticed I didn't mention this up front. This is off topic. You got your Santa hat on, Dylan. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm just gonna say, you're probably one of a few people that have that on because unfortunately, not very many people braved the cold the other night. So that's probably like an ultimate collector item at this point because so few people probably have it. Although they might have them next weekend. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if they're just gonna be like, here's the other 450 that we didn't give
Yeah, I
out.
should have grabbed more.
For real, just had them all. It's like
Yeah.
a bag full of Santa hats. But yeah, I'm good, man. Other than that, just kind of vibing. But everybody, I already mentioned this special episode because we have a new friend joining us. We've got Jessica on with us, and Jessica is also a huge LSC fan. She's always rocking the green, always at all the matches, the whole thing, talking soccer with us. She is on here with us and will be hopefully joining us a lot in the future. Jessica, welcome.
Hello.
Maybe give us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, missed this past Saturday's game. My daughter had a dance performance, so we missed for that. Good reason, miss, I guess.
I
Um,
guess. I
yeah,
mean, you love your kids. So, I mean,
still watched, caught up on what I could for sure. So I was curious. I was trying to remember when we first came to game, and it was back in March for the men's game against Greenville.
mhm.
And so that was our first game with LSC. And so what kind of got us all into it is my son. I coach his rec league team, and um, to kind of get him to understand, he's 9, but to kind of get him to understand the game more, we're like, hey, let's watch some Premier League. And they're not performing well this season, unfortunately, but his favorite team is I should say ours, is the Wolves. So yeah, not doing so hot this season.
Yeah,
But
today.
say what?
That day today too.
Yeah,
I mean, not as bad as the other day against Everton. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I got to stop that. I got to take my wins where I can. I'm sorry. I'll put
I
that back in.
know, I know.
You're
Well,
just lucky you didn't play this weekend, Tyler.
It's true. It couldn't hurt me.
yeah. So we love the Wolves. We'll be fans forever. But anyway, so then my husband's like, Lexington has a team, and we're like, what? We definitely need to go check them out, and be able to support a local team. And so went to that first game, and we have been hooked ever since, and have just been following along too with all the new Super League team, and it's been really fun just to learn the players and watch the games. And I mean, I played soccer all throughout growing up through high school. And so it's also kind of fun to share something that I did growing up with my kids. And yeah, coming and supporting a local team. I feel like LSC, I wish it wasn't, but I feel like they're kind of they're a hidden gem for sure in Lexington.
Yeah.
I think everyone's all about UK, but don't realize, we've got LSC over here, also rocking it. So yeah, it's been fun. Definitely enjoying supporting
Yeah.
them and going out to the games.
You're 100% right. It's like this weird hidden gem thing. I'll like talk to random people and they're like, there's a pro soccer team. I'm like, yes, like the giant glowing green stadium by the
Yeah.
interstate. That's
Oh, that's what they've been doing over there.
yeah. I thought that was an extension of the Jif factory. No, no, no. Sorry. Like I got that on my mind from like the last interview with Maddie talking about PB and J's.
Oh yeah. Oh, I listened to both those with Maddie and Shay. They were awesome.
Yeah. I
Those
thought they
those were
did
really
so
cool.
good. It's so easy to interview players that are like personable and chill
Mhm.
and like to talk. Because then it keeps me from talking too much, like I like to do.
Yeah.
They were so cool. They were so cool.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this episode and you haven't listened to those, you have to. You have to listen to
Absolutely.
those. They're like those are the best. Whenever we get players on here, nobody wants to hear like me go on forever about soccer. Like, you want to hear players.
See, and if you
You're
listen to
supposed
them,
to
you
say
would
no,
know
Tyler.
Maddie likes peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but not Uncrustables.
Not
I thought
Uncrustables.
that was really interesting because I like Uncrustables
Yeah.
personally.
I love
Yeah,
them.
I remember eating them as a kid, but I don't know, it's weird. As a kid, I didn't like jelly, but now I'm okay with jelly. Like I'm about it. But at first, it was just like straight peanut butter sandwich, and everybody's like, "Why are you just doing that? There's no jelly on there." And I'm like,
Maybe
"What?"
you'll finally grow up and you'll learn Uncrustables.
It's true. It's a possibility. I might get there one day.
Yeah.
I just
Wait,
gotta
so
live
do you
towards my dreams.
you do jelly now though?
I do now. Yes,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying as a kid, I didn't. I
Oh,
only did peanut butter sandwiches, and that was it.
I
Now
mean,
I love
those
good
are still
jelly.
pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. I was like that weird kid too. Like in elementary school, I remember I would like put my Cool Ranch Doritos on my peanut butter sandwich and eat it. And everybody was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like,
You would.
"I don't know. I'm just efficient. I'm an efficient human being, and I'm unstoppable. I don't have to take a bite of a sandwich and then a bite of a chip. I'm doing all this at once. Just next stage of evolution.
You would.
No big deal. No big deal." But no, like Jessica, it's cool to have you on here. Like, obviously, we know each other. We have for a while. Our kids are good friends,
Mhm.
which always makes it easy whenever your kids are friends with other kids that have parents that it's easy to be friends with. Because I feel like that's like, I've said this before. It's like the equivalent of catching like a shiny Pokemon in the old Pokemon games and being like, "Whoa, how did I do that?" So
That's
no,
really rare.
it's even better that you like LSC. So here we
Yeah,
are.
yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
Catching a shiny is very rare.
See, telling you, that's why it's a shiny. Sorry, I'm on a big Pokemon kick. My oldest makes me play Pokemon cards with him like 4 hours a day. So yeah, this is where I'm at.
Yep,
It is
we're in
what it
that
is.
stage too.
Yeah, I actually was helping my mom like get down her Christmas decorations, and I found an old like container that had my original cards from like 1997. and they're all like in perfect condition. And my wife was like, how do those look like they've never been touched? Because there's this weird thing. Like, I'm very meticulous about taking care of my stuff, and it always looks perfect. And my wife, on the other hand, is like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Well, here's a good way to explain it. Books. My books look like they've never been touched, even though I might have read them 4 times. Her books are the ones that like have like a water stain. The cover is gnarled and turned backwards, and everything's dog-eared. So
It's
that's
very well used.
yes, yeah. She's like, well, just because I love it, and I'm like, my love is different. My love is like it's perfect. But anyway, it was cool. My son was freaking out about those. He was like, how are those like still around? Aren't you like old? Yeah, yeah, they are very old. They're now artifacts officially. I think they belong in a museum. Well, let's. I'm just getting off track. All kinds of bad today. Let's like talk some soccer. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's get into soccer mode. Super League is our only action right now, and we've only had one game in the past month to top that all off. Man, it like felt so weird too, like going back to a game because I'm like, wait a second, the winter break hasn't happened yet. Like, how has it not happened? We've gone all this time. I feel like before we get into this match in general, I got to get this off my chest. I feel like we had the wonkiest schedule for our Super League fall schedule. It was real weird. We had the longest stretch of away matches compared to everybody else to start things off, which I know some of that might have been by design, maybe to kind of give us a little bit of cushion to get our stadium up and running where it needed to be. Okay, fine. But then we have a random 3 weeks where we don't play at all, which I'm sure like is nice as a player to be like, oh, I've been traveling all this time. Now I can kind of rejuvenate and kind of get myself together. But then there's like the flip side of like you take too much time off, you get out of the flow. Meanwhile, all the other teams are like steadily gaining momentum. So it's I don't know, it feels very weird to be all stop starty like what we have been here recently. It's kind of I don't know. I'd like we'll kind of dig into this, but it almost feels like maybe that could be a little bit of our troubles, like the things that have kind of held us back some. So let's talk about this game specifically though. I don't want to like get too philosophical about schedules. Dylan, you were there with me. We were watching from the Railbirds area. This game is cold. Not a
Yes.
lot of fans there, unfortunately, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure did not help things.
No.
It was very quiet and very sparse
Mm-hmm.
out there. No matter how many times I yell on my pod that reaches 4.2 million people to please come out, it does not. It does not reach 4.2 million people.
Mm-hmm.
That is a stellar lie. But man, it just not a ton of energy there,
No.
fan wise, which kind of sucks. You start wondering like, man, we've had this break. There's nobody here really to get loud. There was like a handful of us over in the Railbird section that were cheering, and then of course like that random group of 16-year-old kids that played in a like academy game or something beforehand on the fields
Yeah.
that were like they thought that they were bringing good energy, but they were also like distracting Sarah Cox and a couple of our
Yeah.
players,
I,
and it
I,
was
I
like,
feel really bad for her. Like I really don't
yeah,
like the way they treated her and like what they were like saying to her and to the other like opposing players as well. It kind of like I just really hate that. Like it really belittles it,
yeah,
and it's getting misogynistic to a point. So
yeah,
I just don't condone that, and I feel for Sarah Cox like specifically.
yeah.
So, yeah.
It was a bummer because like at first it was kind of like that youthful energy and they're waving the flags and they're wanting to do the chants and you're like, this is cool. And then eventually it was like, actually this is taking a weird turn.
Yeah.
And they're just being like a big distraction, which kind of was a bummer because at first it like felt good. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we can get more like kids this age and college students in here, get
They,
rowdy and cheer on the team.
they
Great.
turned and they were like they looked at me and they're like, "What's a chant?" And I started one with them,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, this is good, good, positive." And then yeah,
Then it turned
it
on
turned
its own. I was
sour.
like,
It turned
like
sour
just it's like don't do this
like
anymore, guys.
very quickly after that. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that is yeah, I don't know, just something was off about the whole night with everything, but it
Let's talk about
yeah,
gameplay though.
let's talk about gameplay. Let's get into that.
Gameplay though. we looked like a team that hasn't played for 3 weeks. You
Yeah.
know, rest versus rust. We looked rusty. Anytime we got the ball, we were very slow on it, slow to make decisions, slow to make those passes. When I think the game plan was maybe there because if we were quick enough,
Hmm.
those passes would have connected, and there were a couple players that did stand out. And like I know the score line, like it's 3-0. We needed to play better, but there were individual players who played well who probably you know did their part in the game plan and they succeeded, and so
Hmm.
they had their moments of individual brilliance. Like I thought Shin played really well.
Yeah.
I think Shin is getting a lot better as the season goes along, and you can tell like as she's becoming more comfortable like here in Kentucky, acclimating, and her English is getting better. And Shay even said it in the interview.
Hmm.
She's developing more in terms of her playing as a player.
Yeah.
It's giving her more confidence on the pitch, and her 1-2 play with Mary Kate was really good and was really starting something on that right hand side. If we had something similar to that on the left side, maybe we could have been maybe a little more lethal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we were pretty slow. That I think that was the biggest problem, is just slow, like rusty.
Right. And it like kind of, I think, you mentioned the left side specifically. We saw like a pretty big change up, right? I mean, in several areas of the field, whether that be because players are on rest or something else is going on. But like Hannah Richardson's back in the lineup, and then we have Julie Mackin on the left side, which great players. But you could tell there was like some type of synergy missing, and it's probably because they've not appeared in too many games together on that side. At least not recently, right? And so it's not like that they're like bad players and they don't know how to do what they're doing. It's just there wasn't like that smooth connection that maybe we were getting over on the other side, because Shin's regular. She's always there doing her thing. Mary Kate is irregular enough. Although we've kind of moved her around different places, but she's super dangerous and they seem to be making good connections. And then like we're looking at like the connections as well, like Shay and Claire Winter, they were doing really good about like managing that and trying to get the ball
Mhm.
out into like the wide areas and helping with that. And they were doing a ton defensively too. So
Yeah.
those were two players that, even, Coach Dickey in the post game interviews was mentioning like taking them off was like a precautionary thing for their health and their safety. But then you notice that like things kind of went a little extra haywire, once you kind of remove those two elements, which, it's tough. It's tough on a team whenever you have to make those changes. And it just definitely, like you said, felt like we had 3 weeks off, and it felt very much like we were kind of missing those things that were making us click that we've seen in other games before. Like we've seen games where it's like pass, move. We're carving up the other team and getting into the final third. And this time it was almost like people had ideas and they wanted to execute those ideas, but it's like the person they were trying to involve in the execution had a little bit of a different idea. And then you would see like an errant pass go right past the player, or a pass come flying at somebody and they're trying to collect it and it bounces off of them and they're busy trying to like get it back into possession. And then meanwhile, like Brooklyn's just closing in. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like Brooklyn was on us at all times. There was no breathing room. They were absolutely smothering us the whole entire game. And it just felt like we were doing the best we could to just escape and get a little bit of breathing room and find some time to really like think and be like, okay, here's what I want to do versus just let's go on instinct and see if we can get past them. So I don't know. Like Jessica, I know you mainly had to catch up on like bits and pieces and stuff. But like, what are your kind of takeaways?
So I'm trying to remember. Is this the second or third time we've played Brooklyn?
Second.
Second,
Okay.
we played
But
them there.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay. So as far as how much pressure they put on, from what I can remember when we on played in Brooklyn against them, I feel like it was a similar thing. where I think they were just very aggressive in that sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like generally, yeah, I feel like the past couple of games, there have just been just those tiny mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and that end up making such a big difference in the long run. But one thing that I've been kind of looking at a lot too with the past several games that when I was trying to kind of catch up on what happened with this past game is the substitutions. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the 2 games before Brooklyn, the substitutions came a lot later, and I feel like we didn't really fully take advantage of them. Whereas this time, I noticed he subbed Hannah Richardson out at halftime, versus in the 2 games previously, it was a lot later in the game. And Amanda Allen didn't start either, which I
Mm-hmm.
think was a big change in the lineup too, because we normally see her playing majority of the game. So
Yeah.
I wonder. I could see that potentially making a difference there too.
Yeah, and like that was, I think a lot of people had questions about Amanda not being there because we'd gotten used to her being a regular starter and constantly there. And I know we don't have like a whole lot of assists or goals out of Amanda, but I think that her presence, I think, is sometimes a little underrated. Just like the fact that for better or worse, she will dribble into 3 or 4 players and try and beat them.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's like we need to lay that ball off. But then other times, I mean, it is kind of beneficial for her to be like that magnet and just pull all these players to her. And then all of a sudden you have all this extra open area for the rest of the team to operate in. And I don't feel like we had a lot of those moments where Brooklyn felt like we need to converge and leave an open space. Now they were converging on us, but it was more of like a ones and twos. You know what I mean? Like it was like we can handle this in a 1-2 type of situation, and then somebody can peel right off immediately after and get back where they want to be. So that it is interesting to think like how the dynamic was changed just from her absence alone. It's yeah, I don't know. It just a lot felt really out of sync. And then like Shin was switched sides. Me and Dylan, we were talking about that during the game. Her being on the right side as opposed to the left, which is not something we're used to seeing. Which I thought she did awesome on the right. Like
Yeah.
I know she does great on the left, but the right was really good for her.
Yeah, it was. And she made like a couple like clearances that were pretty important as well. So she,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the last 2 games she played center back, or maybe it was like, 2 games ago she played center back as well.
Yeah,
She played pretty well at that position. So
yeah,
defensively, I think she's, one of like probably our best defensive player.
yeah. Something that like I noticed too in this match, and this isn't really a new thing. This is actually something that's been going on for a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen this much. I think Dylan, maybe we've talked about it here and there. We do a lot of like getting a hold of the ball and then just letting it sail, like there's somebody making a run into the final third. And then like when you look up, you're like, okay, I'm gonna see somebody running and the ball's gonna land out, and you look up and you realize the next closest player to the ball for us is a good 20 yards away and not making a run.
yeah,
And I feel like that's been a little bit of like a reoccurring thing, like at least once per game, which I know that's going to happen. Like that, all teams kind of maybe have that moment where somebody's just like, okay, I got the ball. I know somebody's going to make that run because we practiced this. And then they just go ahead and send it. But there's some disconnect there, whether that be from the potential runner or the person delivering. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I feel like it happens more often than it should. And then we just end up giving away possession. And then we're right back playing defense again, as opposed to being like, okay, nobody's making that run. So what's our next move? Who are we going towards? What's our outlet? And it's just a lot of giveaways. And then we do a lot of, just try and sail it up the sideline from out wide, but then it always just goes out of bounds, just always out of bounds. And then they get a throw in and get a chance to reset. So I think those things definitely hurt us a lot in this match. The constant, here you go, have a chance to kind of reset yourselves and then come at us. And we'll
hmm
just try and defend for as long as possible. And like a team like Brooklyn, like I think they were third in goals before this match, and not by much. I think they were only 2 behind us because or maybe I don't even think we were first anymore. I think that somebody surpassed us, but they were like third in goals, and they've got some super dangerous people like Mackenzie George. Like, she's insane. If I could steal one player from Brooklyn, it would be hands down Mackenzie George. Like, she is ferocious on the wings, and like she was taking it to Julie all night, and Julie was doing her absolute best to handle her, and she did a really great job. I thought Julie was doing well going toe to toe with her, but she's just a phenomenal player. She's tough. She's gonna keep coming at you over and over again.
One thing that like really didn't help, and really playing into your point, Tyler, is it was cold, and when you kick those balls over the top, they just die out in the cold air, and so they go nowhere, right?
Yeah,
And the ball's like harder to kick as well, so that
yeah,
that's an added factor. But I just think it's not playing into our strengths as a team as well. Whereas like we can get Maddie to drop into a more, midfield position. And she's really good with the ball at her feet. And Shay's really good with the ball at her feet. And she's good at moving the ball around to the other players. And her paired with Winter was a really good pair. Like, I like them as the, two holding midfielders there. It works really well. And I do like Autumn in the attacking midfield position. So I think, if we can get the ball into the midfield, which we do at some times, but we just then send it out wide,
yeah.
and it's, I don't know if that's part of the game plan or maybe just like in the moment, like, let me try to see if they're open, but that hasn't been working out for us, just sending those out to the wings and trying to like the like dump and chase method, like it's not working
Right.
for us currently.
Yeah. Those
Yep.
those definitely tough to see. Sorry, Jessica, I cut you
No,
off.
I was just going to add when I was just looking at the stats to kind of catch up on the game, like the possession was fairly close to 50-50. It was, we had it 45, they had it 54. So yeah, and I feel like when we are able to connect those passes, we're good at keeping the possession, but like just totally agree as far as, kicking it down field and hoping, hoping we hold on to it. But I feel like we just from previous games have it generally doesn't always work out well for us, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just hard, and you start like thinking about like some players that we haven't seen a lot of, and maybe we're gonna lean on them a little bit more, because things have been a little tough. Like Grace Wisniewski was in there. I thought she did really good when she came on. I really liked her what she
Yeah.
brought. I think it would have been cool to see a little bit more of Corey Sullivan. She came in pretty late, and it was kind of hard to kind of tell what impact she had because it just wasn't a lot of time. It was just she was there, and it's always weird to me too the situation with Corey, because I feel like this is just my impression. I feel like when she was brought in, she was kind of like one of the flagship players, I guess you could say. It just kind of it had that vibe of being like, this is going to be our person that's going to score like all the goals, and then we just haven't seen a whole lot from her. And I do think that she has like crazy potential. And of course, like thankfully we have lots of great goal scorers. Maddie Parsons is insane. I still think that I've said this online. I think that she's going to give somebody a run for the money for the Golden Boot. I just really do. But I think it would be cool to see, what maybe some of these other players might have to offer, but maybe there's just not something there, or maybe there's something that's kind of like lingering injury wise. I don't really know. I'm not in those rooms, but I think this past game definitely showed that, when we had to deviate from, I don't know if I'd say it's like our standard starting 11, because we keep kind of tweaking. I don't really know that we've ever seen like
Yeah, I don't think
just
we've
a
found our final,
right.
starting, lineup yet.
Yeah, it's always like one or two changes every time, which is not bad. You got to adjust to the game and to the opponent. Um, but I definitely think that, up against Brooklyn, that was tough. That was tough going up against them. After a break with a lineup that we've not seen a ton of, at least personnel wise. And we're coming up against DC. DC's not quite as scary as Brooklyn. I say that with us not having a home win yet, and us struggling on our own. But they're not quite the juggernaut that Brooklyn is turning out to be. Because as easy it is to get down on this result because of us having, this being our 5th winless game. We had one tie in the mix in there against Spokane, but I think it's worth noting at least that Brooklyn is tearing it up. They're the ones that dethroned Carolina, right? Carolina was sitting at the top forever and ever and ever, and then Brooklyn was like, never mind, it's us. And I think they're scarier than Carolina by far. Like Carolina always just kind of felt like, how are you there? Not that they're bad, but it's just like, are you really that good? Versus Brooklyn, I'm like, they're really that good. So, I don't know. We I don't know, with this game, I did think we saw some like shining moments. I know that you guys already mentioned a couple, and like Dylan, you were talking about Claire and Shay and what they did, and Shin, and there were a lot of people that did really good things. I think Mary Kate did really good, and I know I brought her up once before, but I thought that she was so aggressive and just really taking it to him on that right hand side. I always felt like whenever she got a hold of the ball, that there was potential that we would see somebody score. And the number of crosses that she kept sending in was really fueling what we were trying to do. We could never get anybody on the end of it, or it was always that their keeper would get there a little bit quicker. But I do think that she brought a whole lot to this. And, it was kind of cool seeing her back in the starting lineup, because that last match before we had the break, she came on as a late super sub and, had that crazy goal, scored, saved us some points. But I think it'd be cool to see some more of her. And I hope that she kind of keeps that intensity no matter where she's at. If she's kind of more in the middle, if she's playing out on the wing, I think she's really versatile, and she's kind of proven that she's somebody that can kind of help keep those chances and that pressure coming. So I really was impressed with like her being out there and what she delivered. We did have like a couple questions too related to the Super League stuff, which I think we can kind of like use this as some extra little kindling for what we're talking about. We had Matthew. Matthew is asking us, at this point, do you think the Super League results are on the coach or the team? We're almost through the fall season and are yet to win a game at home, and our defense is really struggling.
Jessica, would you like to go first?
Ooh, okay. I saw this question.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No,
Just giving fair.
He is. He told me this was his plan the whole time.
I was trying to think through this earlier. And based on like the interview after the game with Mike Dickey, he did mention just working on some more discipline stuff with them. And I think there are definitely times where in games it seems like it's clear that the defense is tired, but we don't try to get fresh legs in there. And I feel like when they get tired, it's really easy for things to kind of fall apart. So I don't know if I could pick one or the other necessarily, because like Bolshay and Maddie even point out, like it's all a team effort, win or lose. And so, but it's clear that they want to keep improving. Obviously, they want to win. But yeah, I don't know that I'd necessarily be able to point a finger one way or the other.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm very mixed on this. And you already pointed this out with the interviews. It was really nice to hear Coach Dickey take responsibility. I think sometimes you get coaches that tend to play coy with it all or pass the buck because they're afraid if they're like, yeah, I got to figure this out, that all of a sudden, they're on the hot seat or whatever might be happening. But I mean, as the coach, you kind of have to, you know what I mean? It's just part of your position and the role that you decided to take on. Excuse me. And I think that was refreshing to hear. And I think that the nice thing about how he approaches this stuff is he holds himself to a high standard. It's not like he just goes and says, you as players need to do X, Y, and Z. It's you guys have a role. You do need to do X, Y, and Z, but I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need to help you guys achieve that, have the tools and the resources, the game plan, all the above to help that happen. So I think that blame can be shared all around. I think that just saying it's one or the other doesn't quite work. My thing is, I will say, for as much as we've struggled, I don't know if I've felt quite as much disconnect with our women's team as I did with our men's team this past year. I feel like our men's team, it just felt disjointed in the sense of like they weren't quite sure how to work together at times. I feel like our women's team, for the most part, understands and knows how to, but the execution just isn't always there, if that makes sense. I don't know, Dylan.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Yeah, we say it a lot on the pod that the women's team has a lot of chemistry. So I don't necessarily feel like it's a player problem, but in a way, it kind of is too, because there's a lot of players that we haven't seen yet. I mean, there's players who are going through injuries. I mean, the lineup that we saw, there was names missing from it, yeah, as well. Like, Courtney is a player that we see on the regular. She wasn't involved. She wasn't even in the like reserves, or not reserves, but substitutions. So like there was a couple people who had like near season ending injuries in preseason. So uh, it's the players, because we just haven't, like, we were supposed to probably have like a team designed, with this roster and a starting 11 that was, maybe these players, but that just didn't happen, because of injuries and just the way the season has gone. But I still think they're a good team because of like the amount of chemistry they have. And we do have some really, really talented individual core players. Like Maddie Parsons should be our starting striker for like the rest of the season, in no doubt to me. And Shay cemented herself as a midfielder for us, and possibly Hannah Winter as well. These, and I mentioned Shin, and I think, Tyler, to your point, Mary Kate has been like really spicy. Like, I think she's very spicy on the ball as well. Like, when she gets it, she's very dangerous. Whether it's her one-on-one with a defender, or if she's helping out our teammates putting in crosses. So I think we just still haven't found our like starting 11, the people who are going to play most of the season and most of the minutes for our team. That's just not the team we've seen yet this season. So I think that's why. Like, I don't think it's necessarily like a game plan problem, because like on set pieces, we're good on set pieces. Like, we've been very good. We can make plays happen. So I don't necessarily feel like it's a coaching issue per se. I just feel like, it just hasn't gone our way with the personnel just yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you make a good point about the injuries that we've experienced. And I think a lot of people forget about those injuries because they happen so soon, like before preseason or right at the start of preseason. You have Trinity Watson, who is on our W League team. She all of a sudden is out, which, I mean, I could be wrong, but I kind of had her pegged as a starter. And maybe that wasn't going to be the case, but it kind of felt that way. Natalie Higgins, she's been out. We have Alicia Laramie, she's been out. So all these players, you kind of wonder, like, okay, if we had them available just for like rotation purposes, not necessarily saying they take somebody's starting spot. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But just having those tools in the toolbox, you know what I mean? It could have made a huge difference. And, hopefully, you don't know, right? Hopefully their recovery goes well enough that maybe we'll see them before the season ends, because that's kind of the nice thing about having this giant break right in the middle of the season. It gives a little bit more recovery time for those players in those situations. And I guess if you're going to find like a silver lining in their injuries, it's that it happened right off the bat. So they had extended amount of time to hopefully make it back into the season, and maybe we see something different. I don't know. I don't really know at this point what you do to change. You know what I'm saying? It's you look at it and it feels like it's a sound game plan. It feels like we've got talented players that have chemistry.
It feels
But
like we haven't played any games this season in a way. Like it feels like we've
yeah,
not had like multiple games in a row. It just feels like there's always a big break, and that really breaks up the chemistry. And minutes are confidence in a player,
yeah,
and confidence in a player is 1,000% how they're going to perform on the field. So getting confidence in those players is hard when they're not getting minutes, and I'm going to bring this back to Shin, but Shin is getting a lot of minutes and she's getting more confidence in her ability on the pitch. And therefore she is one of our better players on the field. And, that shows, Maddie Parsons as well. Like, minutes are super key. And, when we're not getting consistent minutes from these people, that definitely plays a hand in the result.
Well, I
yeah,
think it's hard to really pinpoint. Like if someone's like, well, where do you feel like the problem area is? And it's really hard to pinpoint because we're number 3 for goals scored, but bottom for goals scored against. And so we know we can score, but other teams are just scoring more than us.
yeah. And like we have an abysmal goals against set of numbers. It stinks because like I truly do think we have some great talent. In goal and on defense, it's just man, we just have these goals that go in that kind of leave us a little cooked. So
And yeah, and that's not at all like anything against Sarah Cox either, because she has also saved us from being demolished. Like some of the saves she's had during the season so far have been amazing.
yeah, she has like all these insane acrobatic saves. It's wild that she pulls them off, and it's just at some point we get worn down, and you have these goals that happen. It's just like the first goal, like we were sitting right behind it, and like we kind of had a similar view, not exact view, right, of what Sarah Cox was seeing, but from where we're sitting, you can tell that like her view was obstructed. Like Julie sitting there trying to do her duty and like stop any shot from being taken. And then at the same time, though, when you do that, it's hard to see through your defender. And then here comes a shot out of nowhere. And before like Sarah knows what's happening, it's in. And those are just tricky situations, right? Because your defender's trying to do their job. You're trying to like figure out when they're going to take the shot. You don't really anticipate somebody being bold enough to take a shot through a player. And then it happens, or the goal that happened last, that was tough. Sarah Cox gets put in a one-on-one situation, and not a lot of time to really make a decision. And cover the entire goal. So it's I don't know. I think, and I've said this in the past, I think our turning point is when we finally earn a clean sheet. When we finally earn a clean sheet, whether it be a 0-0 draw or we thump a team 6-0, I don't care. But I think a clean sheet will be the moment when we're like, okay, we did this. We did this. Like, it's big. I think that, in my opinion, is going to be bigger for us than our first home win, which we've yet to have. I think that will be a really good signal that we figured something out. And I don't care how bad the team is we're up against. I think that's just a good benchmark that we need to strive for. But I don't know.
Listen,
we still got to strive.
I want our first home win to be this coming game, this coming weekend. I'm bringing the whole squad out. We're going to sit in the Railbird section. We're going to get loud. We're going to get rowdy. We're going to support. I hope other people will come out and join as well.
Definitely.
So I think this is the game to win. And Tyler, you'll feel this especially, but we got to go into winter break feeling good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree. Now, speaking of winter break, we did have another question. Yes. Out into the
Put it out there.
universe. Yes.
Manifesting.
All the good vibes. We did have one more question about the Super League that I think is important to just kind of like address real fast too. We got this break coming up. NWSL season is over. I think tomorrow is even like the deadline for teams to start saying who they're releasing and all of that. Unless I was looking in the wrong spot, I'm pretty sure that's like
Interesting.
whenever they have to like submit their terms of the new contracts, list of waived players, list of players receiving exercise options, things like that. I think tomorrow is the deadline. But somebody was asking. Let me see who it was. Tim. Tim said that he was wondering if we would be making any roster changes during the winter break to our team. He didn't specifically bring up the NWSL, but I kind of feel like that's like the natural place that you might look if you're going to make a winter break change. I don't know. Like, do you think we just ride out with who we have? Do you guys think we inject some fresh talent?
I think I think it would do us wise to, maybe at least go for one person who they feel like could make a difference. I don't think there's necessarily a need to go all out and grab like multiple people and do like a refresh. I don't think that's necessarily
No.
the move. I think maybe like a really talented, like, one position player, maybe a left winger that can really blow the brakes off another team, something like that. But
Yeah.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this because I feel like there's a lot of factors here. Like how much money have we already spent versus how much do we have? What are the contracts looking like for each of these players?
Hmm.
How many international spots do we have left? We've already got a couple of loanees from NWSL teams in Claire and Amanda. They both came to us from Orlando. So we've got those loans active right now. I kind of lean the same way as you, Dylan. It's like maybe like one person to just kind of refresh things because I don't think it's really a slight on other players. It's just we've got all these players that are missing that are yet to join us. That three players is kind of a big deal, right? Especially when you think about rotation, availability, whether or not there's that competitiveness at the starting position. I don't think it's necessarily out of the question that maybe you say, hey, this person is available. They could fit what we're trying to do. Let's see what they can do for us. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be something that happens, to be honest with you, especially considering the size of our roster and who we already have. Because, I mean, we do have some players that we've yet to see out there. We have other players that have gotten very minimal playing time. And, Coach Dickey in the post-match interview said that he saw some nice things out of a couple players that he's not played a bunch of, which I don't know who that is. I don't know if that's Corey. I don't know if that's Grace. I don't know
I
who
would
for sure he was
I
talking
was
about. But
thinking Grace, maybe.
I mean, that's kind of what my gut's telling me. So you never know. You might see that where he starts leaning more on the players we've not seen a whole lot of, just to try and refresh our options and see how we can kind of throw a curveball at other teams. Um, yeah, that's a really good question though. Jessica, do you have any
Well,
thoughts?
I'm not as familiar with how that process works, but thoughts as far as like skill, I think you can have a super talented person out on the field, but if they don't know how to vibe with the rest, like if they don't mesh well with the rest of the team, it's just it won't really connect, I think, in the long run. I mean, I really like Amanda Allen, and I think I love watching her footwork and her, totally just go out, yeah, just really go for it sometimes. But I feel like it doesn't always connect with other teammates in that sense. I feel like there aren't a lot of opportunities that normally, um, I think, pan out when she has the ball. I think she gets a lot of good shots, but like you mentioned earlier, she's not a high scorer for us either. So I think even if they did, I think if it were me, I would want to focus more on continuing to build the team that we have. Because yeah, the chemistry is there. We just need to make those connections that we're not quite make. I feel like we're not making a lot of at the moment.
Yeah, I'd
I
agree.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I agree with you about Amanda Allen. I feel like she's just a player that we haven't fully unlocked yet. I feel like
Mhm.
she might have the highest like skill potential or like skill ceiling on our team. Like just that's like how much raw talent she has,
Hmm.
right? And we see it sometimes, when she's crossing up the opponent. She's extremely talented. But I
Yeah.
think her decision making is currently holding her back.
Yeah.
She'll hold the ball too long or like, dribble into two defenders when, she could easily give like a 1-2 and like she's so speedy, she can have an
Mhm.
open break. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree with you about her.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
there's another one of our players, open and ready, and like I feel like she doesn't fully take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Where we could just kind of like take the obvious option sometimes, right? Like don't work harder than you have to. Like let the ball do the work.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's all you got to do,
So
I
yeah, so
I
in that
agree with
sense,
you. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's good to like keep the chemistry and the vibes good because sometimes whenever you bring in a new player halfway through your season, it signals to players that play that position, I don't believe in you anymore, and you're probably not going to get a lot of opportunities from this point forward. And that's a tough decision to make as a coach to decide like where is your point? Where is your point with that player or those players where you're ready to say without saying we're bringing this person in because it's not going right. And I don't know. Like maybe I'm just too optimistic. I still feel like we have a good team that can get it together and can start getting results. I don't know that I'm like down in the dumps and being like, oh man, it's been so tough and we're never going to win anything. A lot of people are saying we're going to finish last. Maybe we do. I don't know. I just feel like we have a lot of potential there. And it's just a matter of finally getting over that hill. Like I said, with like the getting your first clean sheet, something like that, just to be like, okay, this is it. So this is our turning point, and let's do our thing. So I guess we'll see. I mean, we got the whole break to kind of figure out what's going to go down. We can switch gears. You guys feel like switching gears? You want to switch gears because we got some big
Let's
news.
do it.
Let's talk about like the big announcement for our USLC team and just kind of like a couple USLC things. But first, ta-da! I summoned a Kyle. Look at that with a new background.
Oh, I was muted all that time waiting and I came in muted.
I know,
That's a
like you're
pro
supposed to
right
be
there.
ready.
New background,
Embarrassing.
trying to mix it up, trying to fix some of the audio issues we had last time out. So
Yeah,
hopefully this room's a little bit better. It's a better visual too, I think, for the viewers. Like if you're on YouTube right now. Yeah.
that's a nice room. Like, look at the is that wallpaper? Did you paint that yourself, Kyle?
This is wallpaper. I did that
You didn't paint
myself.
it yourself. Wait, you
And then
wallpaper?
this, man, I'd be a terrible weather person. This back here, that's like they call that shiplap. Is that what that is? Some wood
I don't
put
know.
up and painted. Yeah.
HGTV it.
Yeah, your boy's a
It's like
DIY kind of guy
I
too,
think it's
so
wainscoting.
that might be it.
I don't know.
That might be
I
it.
think it's Wayne's
Boom.
World.
Wayne's
Look
World.
at Jessica
Yeah.
coming in clutch already, day
Yeah,
one.
Dylan,
And she's
I
saving us
think
from being dumb and not knowing not knowing
yeah,
our interior decorating.
yeah. Obviously,
She's
this is
like,
my vision too. My wife had, she came in and was like, "Oh, that looks pretty good, I guess." But this is all my vision, so we made
yeah,
it happen.
yeah. Look at you, man. Kyle, man of many talents. Cooking on Blackstones, running marathons, interior decorating. He's got like everything. It's a total package.
Yeah.
Um, Kyle, man, I'm glad that you could join us for our USLC talk. We're here. We're in the mix. For like everybody that listens and enjoys Kyle's presence.
Both of
There are
you.
some. There are some, right? There are a few of us. There are a few. Somebody cheered somewhere. I heard them.
Yeah.
It was Tim Meadows. No, but we kind of expanded this, right? We started with just me awkwardly talking into all this, and then we get Kyle and Dylan, and now Jessica's here helping us out when she can. So we're expanding this so that way it takes some pressure off of people because it is a lot. We love this, but if you guys don't know, it is a lot to cover everything LSC. There's a lot LSC, and we all work full time. We have families. We have lives that are beyond soccer and LSC. So life takes priority always. Soccer, we can go the whole like Danny Rojas thing and football is life, and it's true, but it's not always life in the board game sense when you realize that you have taxes and debt and you don't know what to do. So because of that, when I was expanding this, it's allowing us to kind of like come and go and step in and step out as we want. So our guy Kyle, he's going to like kind of help us out pretty heavily with our championship team coverage, especially podcasting wise. He might pop on here and there for some Super League talk, but he's going to help us primarily with the championship stuff, right, Kyle?
Yeah, that's the plan. I've taken a little bit less of an active role when it comes to some of the Super League coverage, just because, as you mentioned, the time commitment and everything. I'm still going to be helping out with a lot of the, I guess, template type graphics that we do. All that stuff will still look and feel the same, and the season end awards and all that stuff will still be all the same. So if you like the graphics, they're gonna remain on point. If you don't like them, then take that up with Tyler. He's the boss. But yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit more. I'm just gonna try to, with what time I do have outside of all the things you mentioned, the job and the family. I'm gonna, obviously I used to work closely with the club, and I still feel that draw to the men's side, and so I'm gonna try to do a little bit more with the men's team and the USL Championship coming up. And so so you'll probably see me less in the Super League conversations, but we'll still be a fan of the whole club, top to bottom. So hoping to be able to get out to another match soon for the Super League. But yeah, I'll still be around, but probably less involved on the women's side.
I really thought whenever you were like on all of the things that you just mentioned, and then you followed up with like family and work and stuff, I thought you were going to say the Blackstone, the marathons.
Yeah.
Miss an opportunity there to lean into that.
You talk about that enough for
I
all of us. So
I made a joke about it before you were on, by the way.
Dylan's like, yeah, he really does. You know how many marathons I've actually run?
Lots.
He's actually not run
he's
not run the A marathon because
he runs half marathon.
If you do enough half marathons, it equals multiple marathons.
I listen, and earlier I asked how Tyler was doing. So, like, where's my appreciation? You know what I mean?
Yes. Where is Dylan's?
I'm the listener here.
Yeah. I agree. But Dylan actually listens.
I just talk.
You might hear things. Dylan listens.
I just trait that is. I just go.
Play this for my wife too, so she knows that I listen.
ADHD flares up, and I just go.
Yeah,
cowabunga it is. It's all. But no, like for real though, like Kyle's not going to be a stranger. He's still going to be around. He's going to be doing lots of stuff. It's just this has always been my thing that I tell everybody that helps out with this. Do as much or as little as you can. Life always comes first. So if you need to take steps back, take steps back. If you want to lean in, come in for a warm embrace. If you're watching the pod on YouTube, you see me air hugging everybody. But
this is one of those things that Tyler, his run on things.
It's good.
If you're a familiar listener of the pod or viewer, this is one of the the run on things.
So championship.
Yes, the USL Championship.
This is why we record until 1 a.m. Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's me. It's me because I just enjoy you guys' company so much. Let's talk about the coach, and then we'll answer a couple questions about the championship team to come in general. Dylan, you were on the ground for us for the coach. You got to go to like the day one presser. What's up?
So, I had the special unique experience of being, invited to the club and, getting to do a interview with Terry Boss. So I got to do a one-on-one with him, asked him a few questions. I didn't want to overstay my welcome. A couple of people asked around the same amount of questions as I, a couple of people asked a lot of questions, and I felt like, I don't want to bother this guy. He's got a job to do. He's got players to sign, but I was genuinely impressed by him. He is an extremely charismatic person. In person, he is extremely confident in himself. You just see it in how he carries himself and how he talks to you, and he looks directly in your eyes when he's speaking to you. And When I asked him questions, he was very confident in his answers. And, I asked him about his experience level, the fact that he has no pro head coach experience. And I was not the only person to ask him that question. The other people who interviewed him asked him that as well. And to each person, including myself, he was extremely confident in his answer. I think he was prepared to answer that question. Like, he knew that his experience level would come into question. I think he is going to win people over. I don't know if his personality 1,000% will win people over. I know that I said he's very charismatic, but I think he really aims more so about the product on the field, and he's going to try to win people by putting the ball in the net. I think my friend Noah, who is a listener of the show, said that watching the interview, he reminds him of Gabe Kapler, who is, in the baseball community. He's former player, good looking, charismatic, cares about numbers and statistics, and, cares about getting points on the board, and I think maybe that necessarily doesn't resonate with beauty or the most beautiful product, I guess. And it may not resonate with all fans, but scoring points will resonate with fans, and that's what is ultimately going to win people over. And I think that that could potentially happen with him. I think he's very confident in himself.
I was going to say that confidence is something that seems like it's well founded. Someone who doesn't have a lot of professional coaching experience, but that was always the path he was on. Everywhere he's gone, I feel like he's had success as a coach. He's one of those players that you could tell he's got that tenacity and was like that as a player as well, and forced to retire due to concussions and head injuries. And you can find quotes from Casey Keller and other guys that played with him, that he was the hardest worker that they'd ever played with, right? Or that they'd ever been associated with. So he's going to kind of bring that mentality. Won a championship with the Virginia soccer program, went on and had a lot of success at Oregon State. I think they had their best 4-year run in the team's history while he was there. Made it to the NCAA tournament 4 years. I think they had a Pac-12 championship. He was coach of the year a couple of times. So the point being, even when he was at Tulsa, they made it to the NCAA tournament. There's that standard of success. And Oregon State is the real deal. D1 soccer, if you're not familiar, those players, those are future pros. And so to leave Oregon State position to get into the professional ranks, I think says a lot for where he saw his path going. You know what I mean? Oregon State for a lot of coaches would be the job. And he's, especially because that's where he's from, he's the Pacific Northwest guy. So you would think that would be that's he's got his job, he's got it made. But he obviously always wanted to get into the professional ranks. And so I think riding a lot of that success at the collegiate level, which is still saying something. Again, most of those guys that are out there are going to be future professionals at some level. And to have the success he did, I think it says a lot. And I think the fact too that he is a former goalkeeper and is a little bit more the defensive minded, perhaps where he started, is going to help as well, because I think that's just defense in general has been maybe the shakiest, I don't know, group, or I don't know if you want to call it department, everything from the stats to the players to the everything. Our defense, it feels has just been up and down. And so hopefully this type of head coach with his background kind of come in and have that part ironed out. And then to Dylan's point, start putting goals in the back of the net as a team, and now you're cooking. So I do think those questions that Dylan and others asked were legit and had to be asked. But I do think for a guy that's young, early 40s, he's done a lot everywhere he's been. I reached out to a couple folks that are still with the club, including some members of ownership, They're very impressed with him. I mean, they're not going to tell me that they're like, yeah, hey, this guy we hired kind of sucks, but they say he's intense, high expectations, everything that Dylan found out. That's kind of what everyone seems to keep bringing up. And the interesting thing that was relayed to me from someone at the club is how some of the returning players are going to respond because of his level of expectation, which was interesting and says a lot about former coaches at LSC as much as it does about him too, but just how these players are going to respond to the standards he sets. So it's a new era, new boss in town, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I think one thing that has stuck out to me was how he develops the teams. Like, it's clear from his experience, he takes a team and he develops them into a really good, well-performing team, which going from USL 1 to championship, first, already we're going into that with a really big challenge because there's a lot of people that don't think we deserve to be at that level. And so I think we really need a coach that comes with that energy that says, no, we're here to win. We are going to be a contender. And so, and we're, I mean, as the news went out of all the players that are not going to be returning, we're going to have a brand new team that he's going to have to bring together to win.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to him talk because maybe he was just extra prepped and knew what fan feedback had been coming in from last season. I don't know, but he was saying all the right things. It was all like, we're going to deliver a great product on the field, but we're also going to make sure that we are a team that takes care of each other, trusts each other, supports each other, and like really puts it all together, even if it's only on the field, right? And I think that that's really important because we need a unified team. Like, we need to have something that the sum of the parts are greater than the individuals, right? And it's all good and great to have a team with really, really talented people, but if you can't get those really talented people to have each other's backs and routinely work strongly and well together, it doesn't mean a whole lot. And I think that that's really his ambition. I think that he knows that the fans need something in year 3. Like, I don't think this club can stand another year of these types of results. It's just, you're a young club, you're kicking things off, and we're trying to get attendance. Attendance isn't amazing. And this is a city, whether you like it or not, that like you win and they love you. You don't, and they write you off. We even see like diehard UK fans that are like, my grandpa's grandpa were UK fans, and then they have like a string of 2 bad games, and it's like, I hate UK, I can't believe this, and fire the coach. So that impassioned fan base can be amazing, but you also have to have results to keep that impassioned fan base, especially for something that's new. And they can't say, my grandpa supported this. It's like, oh, it's me. I'm going to be the grandpa's grandpa, saying that I like this. So I think he knows the assignment. At least he's expressing he knows the assignment. So I'm really, really excited to see how he kind of enacts all this and gets it going. And it's kind of wild to me. Like, it dawned on me just the other day that we're going to be playing sooner than we did the past 2 years because of the championship. Championship starts earlier than League One. So just thinking even about preseason happening quicker, the guys coming together quicker. So it's all going to happen. It feels like very, very fast. I don't think we're going to have like that same little cushion that we used to have. It's just going to be like, boom, here we are. And I'm ready to see who he puts together and how he puts them together. And one big question for me too is, where do our old guys fit into this? If we decided to keep them, what is their role? Are they, obviously everybody's competing without a guaranteed starting position. At least that's how it should be. It should always be, you're in competition. This is not yours forever. You're leasing this. And if the next guy pays the rent sooner than you do, they're up, but I'm just curious, like, where they're going to fit into this, because it seems like we kept a very attacking heavy core from the past year. I mean, and that indicates to me, like you brought it up, Kyle, like defense is going to get a complete overhaul. Defense is going to be the thing. And I'd like to see us invest heavily in defense. I have good vibes. I feel good. And I know I've said that every year about every coach, but you got to go with what you have. And what we have right now is what he's told us. And I feel like at least it seems like he understands the assignment and is going to try and enact these things. So it's good. Let's talk a little bit about that too. Or Dylan, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I want to say that I don't really know what to expect really in terms of what our play style is going to be. I know that John from USL Tactics put out, a big thing, and it is a good read, and you get like a sense of like what kind of style, and like he seems like he wants to do a lot of like heavy pressing, wants to remain on the ball, and when we don't get the ball, we get it back very quickly, that type of mentality. And he said in one of the answers to my questions that he likes to play with a front three, so that's like the only real like indication of like what what we're gonna maybe have. So, maybe a front three, and with the players that we already have, I'm already, like you said, talking about, what kind of players we're going to get. I'm very confused already with the group that we're keeping. And then, we need to invest heavily into defense, like you said.
Yeah.
Some of the conversations I've had, I think, and same thing happened this time last year. So again, I'm echoing what Tyler said, like I'm going to temper some expectations, but I think some of the signings are going to be, you're going to look up some of these guys' history and it's going to be like MLS experience, like USL championship experience. Like I think there's going to be some really fantastic signings, at least on paper, and to the point that we had this time last year when everything on paper was looking nice. It's how are those players going to come together, and how is the coach going to get the most out of them? And just because you've played, at a certain level, or even excelled at a certain level, like you're going to have to be able to do it as a team in Lexington. So it will be interesting to see once names start actually coming out. But I know there's people in the club that are just stoked for the players. And again, we could be like year 11, head coach number 14, and we're still just like, next year's the year. I can feel it.
Got this.
That'll be Tyler being solo at that point. But let's hope we don't
you
get
guys
there.
Are leaving me,
dude. If it's that, I mean, come on, no. We're going to manifest good things, and this is the start, I think, of something big. And the club's had a lot of growing pains. That should be like the theme of the first few years. It'll be like chapter 1 of Lexington Sporting Club, but I think that's common. And now we can maybe get a little bit more steady in terms of like what's next. It's like maybe we don't have to anticipate another massive club change for the next year. We can just kind of get into where we are. Super League set. They're rocking and rolling. Champion's going to be USL Championship's going to be set. They'll be rocking and rolling. And, it's not like another monumental change for the club is around the corner. So like we can kind of settle in a little bit. And like I said, it seems like all indications from internally at least are positive, but again, I'm not sure what they're going to tell me anything bad anyway. So,
well, and there is potential. I mean, you look at Rhode Island again this past season, they're pretty new, and they had that upset against Louisville.
Made it all to the end too.
Yeah, so it's possible.
Yeah. And one thing I really like about him too, that like I didn't really think of it this way, but like being in education, my wife is a teacher. She had mentioned after watching it, she's like, he kind of reminds me of like a seasoned teacher. Like he has like the right amount of charisma that that he can kind of like work his magic to get all kinds of people on board with what they need to do and his expectations and how he wants them to achieve those expectations. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That's a good analogy. He very much has like that demeanor of like, I'm going to hold you to this level of expectation and you're going to meet it. And it's not like we're going to be sitting here like having a screaming match over it. It's just, you're going to do it because I'm going to instill that level of respect between us, and this is what we're going to do. And I think that's going to go a really long way for what we're trying to achieve with everything, not just this year. Because, you know, Kyle, you're right, man. It would be amazing to see some continuity from like coaching perspective, because, you know, having a couple years with the same coach, I think could do us a lot of good. And, you know, this past year it's just a really hard year. There's such high expectations. I don't think there was much escaping those expectations once the results started coming in, you know, but I think this year maybe we can kind of be hopeful that we're going to get the ball rolling and move in the right direction. So we'll see. Let's talk a little bit about like potential for who he might bring in, because we did have a question about this. We had a couple questions related to the championship. So we actually got a question from Eric. He was asking if we thought that the USLC roster build stays pretty domestic, so guys from like MLS, USL, MLS Next, or if we think that we're going to blend in a little bit more international style signings like Yannick, like looking abroad for all these players. So I don't know. Like, what do we think? Where are we going with that?
I'll lead us off. Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said, I mentioned having some folks internally that are willing to tell me little crumbs here and there. And I've really heard more about the competition level from which a lot of these players may be coming from, may or may not be coming from. And it's been domestic so far, but I guess I don't know for sure the players themselves, right? Like if their background is in international soccer. I would hope, and I feel like we have this conversation like every 3 months where we try to remember if we know the rules to like how many international spots you can have. Do we know that? 7?
Well,
yeah.
I still don't know the answer. So.
Tyler started talking, then he muted himself. Then,
sorry.
I was holding
7,
numbers.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, at least I threw up the fingers. Yeah, 7. I'm pretty sure. I know that's what it was for USL 1.
How old are you?
It's
this many.
It's this many. I threw it up. No, I'm pretty sure it's 7.
So yeah, that plays into it. I don't know. I mean, these are also like fun questions that I love when people send them to us because, we're all, I feel like, on the same playing field with this type of like, I don't know, unless someone knows something that I don't or has some like super awesome insiders information. It's like, it's fun because it's just the speculative side of like, it would be great to get, players from and we even did it last a few pods ago where we were, picking specific players off teams that had folded, right? And so we could play that game, I guess, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure. My guess is, these players are going to, I think a big part of it will be like who Terry Boss has crossed paths with, either at Austin or if you go back to Oregon State, because I'm sure he has players there that have gone on to have, careers. So like we might see sort of like we did with Powell, where he had a little bit of that Inter Miami connection with some players. Like you could probably start there and see if there's any of those type of connections with players from Boss's past. But I would guess it's going to be USL Championship heavy, just because they're going to know what that stage is like, and then hopefully there's some MLS or possibly even other leagues of that kind of quality internationally.
Yeah, and I think we would not be doing our due diligence if we don't look at all possible spheres, and say like, okay, what do we got internationally that could kind of like fit what we're looking for and our price tag, and you brought it up, Kyle. You have to be careful how many international spots you use on and who you use them with. Like it's limited. You have to be very like careful and specific with what you want out of those, because it's not quite as easy as just saying, okay, this person's here, they have U.S. citizenship, we have unlimited signings that we can do with that. It adds a little bit of an extra factor into the mix. So, it feels like, the easiest route would be able to like find people that have citizenship and, have had MLS or USL experience, and you pull them in, and then you kind of think, okay, what am I missing? And what am I willing to use those international roster spots on? And who can kind of fit that bill? And like work backwards that way, and I think you're right. We're going to see a mix of experience, a mix of, range of international versus, players that Terry has come across. I've even been like looking, I've been like delving through like Austin FC's roster and like FC2 even I've looked at. Like they have a crazy center back it's played for FC2 that I think would be like killer to give him a chance. Is like Salvatore Mezzafero. Like he's from Canada. Dude is a center back that has insane numbers. Like he's just a beast. And maybe there's something about him I don't know, but like I look at players like that. I'm like, man, that's cool. Like he might have had a chance to work with Boss at some point. Maybe that's a connection that they made, while they were there. And who knows if we see him. So the speculative part is always the most fun. I always like playing Super Sleuth during this time of year.
If they're from Canada, does that take an international spot? Because I feel like it shouldn't, right? Basically,
right? I know Canada's basically Minnesota. Like just
it's like cooler. It's like the cool part of America. Like like,
yeah.
Like if you had a cool cousin, it's like, oh yeah, he lives in Canada,
and he's chill and
shouldn't
lets
count.
the kids play video games at all times. Yeah,
the same continent.
right.
Exactly. And then like Cam Lancaster, like he's been here long enough. When do they just become naturalized into like,
Right. I heard him say y'all once. It's okay. He's we don't need to waste the international.
He's basically a Kentuckian now. Like
I mean, full-fledged, drinks bourbon, says y'all, just any Kentucky. I don't know if he's had a hot brown or anything like that, but we'll ask him sometime. But I don't know. I think a good mix. Dylan, Jessica, do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how much pull we have as like a brand or like a club, So I really don't know if we're.
That's a great point.
Like realistically, I know I hate to be the realistic guy on the podcast, but I don't know if we can get MLS talent, like guys who have played in the MLS within the like past 2-3 years. Like I feel like that's a really high talent level, and I just don't know if we have that pool currently. And I feel like we did overspend maybe a little bit last season, and then the results didn't really come our way. So I really don't think our strategy is going to be the same way. Like, and maybe that's to our advantage. Maybe we get, maybe we play a little bit of money ball, and we play on a shoestring budget, and we play on chemistry and vibes, and just a good game plan, as opposed to just raw star talent. Because the players that we have already re-signed are very talented. Like Cameron Lancaster, championship player; Altez Diouf, championship player; Yannick Yankum. To me, I think he would belong in the championship on any roster, really. So those are three guys I definitely think, would fit the bill. I just don't know if MLS talent is, I don't think a guy just dropping from Philadelphia Union and coming knocking on our door.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it is, it's a competition when it's like a free agency, right? Bidding. It's not just about money. It's about, where you're living and all that stuff. Like if you have a family moving, like it all matters. Like all the stuff that we don't always consider as, I think if you reach one level of athlete where you make so much money, like the top 1% that, not counting them, but that's what I think a lot of us normal people think of. We're just like, oh, he's a professional athlete. He'll just like fly here for the season, then fly back. Like, this isn't that level. These aren't those type of contracts, but so that really does matter. Like, and at the same time, you want players that want to be in your community. Like you have to find the right fits too. I think that's kind of another part of Dylan's point of like, and I'm sure last year, you do your due diligence on who the person is, but like, that's one thing. And I'm going to do the thing that I like to do once a podcast and compare soccer to basketball. That's like the one thing I think that Kentucky fans this year have realized with Mark Pope is that he's brought in players that like fit Kentucky and who he wants Kentucky to be, versus like just looking at a sheet of paper and being like, all right, here's the 10 best high schoolers. Like, we'll make it work. It's like, you can't just look at the 10 best free agents in soccer and be like, we'll make it work. Like sign on the dotted line. So part of it's going to be finding those players that like want to be here in a sense. And to Dylan's point about not being like super marketable, we're going to have to, roll the dice on a lot of players. Like I mean, you even think of a Nico Brown, who, if memory serves, like, Greenville wasn't super high on him. It kind of fell out of favor, and he kind of fell into our laps. And now it's like, 2 years of Nico Brown. It's fantastic. And so you kind of are hoping for that type of player. Yeah, and if you're getting someone that is going from MLS directly to Lexington and USL Championship, you will have questions like, well, are they on the backside of the career? Is there some kind of like injury we don't know about? Is there, you know what I mean? Like, it's fair to ask those. It's common now with transfer portal and everything else, players moving around. There's always that like from a player standpoint, you're always having to sell or I guess from a brand standpoint, you're always kind of sell the club to these players, right? And then as a fan, you have to kind of ask yourself, why is so-and-so ending up here? What are the motives? Yeah, but hopefully it all kind of works out and the pieces come together.
And we're not doing ourselves any favors going through multiple coaches too.
Yeah. It makes it challenging, and Kyle, you raised a good point, because I feel like at this level, you do start getting those questions whenever you get somebody from higher up. Everybody was always like, man, we're going to get MLS talent in here. And it's like, why are they willing to come here though? What's going on with it? And I think that's why, like, sometimes
what's wrong with them?
yeah. What is it? They're just big fans of Kyle. That's all. That's why they're coming in here. But you wonder though, like, you start kind of thinking, of course, and speculation goes wild, but you have players like Ame Mabika, who's like played for Kentucky. He's got roots here. He's played for Toronto, didn't like get barely any time, but he's a good player. And you start thinking, like, can we get people like that, that weren't seeing any time with the first team? Or would they be willing to like come here if the price was right and say, you know what, I lived in the city, I played for the city, maybe I want to go back. Maybe I want to go join them in the championship, which isn't, such a far cry from MLS, like, going all the way down to League One would be. So it's just fun to start speculating those things and be like, who could it be? Who might it be? And you always have those surprises. And sometimes, you hit the nail on the head, although I don't know that I've ever been as successful as like year one. Year one, like the super sleuthing was way easier. And then like as the years have gone on and our net has expanded and our brand isn't big enough to, like you said, Dylan, to just pull in anybody, but it's big enough that now it's becoming more challenging to be like, oh, it might be this person or this person or this person. But it is exciting. And I think we'll see a healthy mix of talent from a variety of places, a variety of backgrounds. And hopefully we are doing the whole, like, who has the vibes? Who has the vibes? So we have one more question for championship. And of course, it being from Tim Meadows, Railbird. If you guys don't know, he's the dude with the megaphone usually, although he's stepped back a little bit from that. He asked us if he bought an LSC USLC player named jersey for Christmas, what player or players? This guy's talking about buying multiple customized kits. Tim, big baller, Tim.
Yeah,
dude.
where's he getting all this money?
Would be safe as far as them being around for the 2026 season as well. Tim, man, you gotta know that's impossible to answer. Like, there's no telling who's coming around for 2026. Like, it's hard to even say, before we started hearing who was going to be back for 2025. And, obviously we've got to play a whole season, but I say, listen to your heart, Tim. Listen to your heart. You've literally tweeted Lexington Sporting Club's team account every day for the past week and a half about Nico Brown. Just get Nico's name. There you go. If you're passionate enough to harass the social media guy every single day, Tim, then you're passionate enough to wear Nico's name on the back of the kit. That's what I think. So go for it. All right. Do we have anything else? I feel like that covers a lot of our stuff, doesn't it?
Well, you asked on Instagram what position most people are like nervous about or anxious to hear.
Yes, I did. I was that was kind of like a curiosity thing. And I know not everybody follows us on Instagram, but Instagram is actually where we got most of our answers. Like, it was quite a few. I think we had like 8 to 10-ish answers on Instagram alone. And I will say overwhelmingly, it was keeper and or defense. I think it was maybe like a 70-30 split, 70 being keeper. Most people are very anxious to see who we're going to put in the net because we cleared our whole keeper room. And that is kind of a big deal. You need a super quality keeper.
Well, and I think Amal was we just loved him so much. So knowing
Yeah.
he's not coming back, I think has really left a big hole
Yeah,
as far as that goes.
it's true. Sorry, Dylan. Okay. I
Oh, no,
thought I cut
no,
Dylan
no,
off.
no. I will wait for you,
Cool.
please.
You're good. No, and I think that I think you're exactly right, Jessica. I think that puts people a little bit more on edge because him being like a fan favorite and also a good player, you start wondering not just are we going to get a good player? You're like, are we going to get a good player that's also beloved? You know what I mean? You can't help but kind of have a little bit of that feeling. It's the same thing we're all going through with like the mystery behind Nico and whether or not he is for sure coming back or not. We've not gotten any indication one way or the other. And you start wondering like, oh, he's really good, but also he's just really well liked. Are we gonna have another person that's that well liked and that good at the same time? You know, because sometimes you compromise. Let's be honest. Like sometimes you get a player that's an absolute baller, but you're not like a huge fan of them, you know, or it's a reverse. You're like a huge fan of a person, but then you look at their stats and you're like, I really love how much you tried. You tried so hard. I love that about you, you know, and it's tricky to find the perfect marriage of those two things. I mean, I'm with people. I'm in that camp. Like it kind of stresses me out wondering who we're going to for sure sign for not only our keeper, but our back line, specifically like center backs. Like I think center backs and keepers are like, you have to get those right. Like you have to. I mean, of course you want to get every position right, but those two, like keeping goals out is the name of the game. Like you keep goals out, worst case scenario, you draw, right? You're getting points at the very least, or a point. And so in my mind, it's like that's where you splash some cash. Like you shore up your defenses and you make sure nobody's going to score on you, and then you figure out the rest. You go from there.
I think, obviously we need a goalkeeper. I mean, obviously we need every position because the roster is currently like thin as whatever. I think obviously, like I said, it's defender and keeper, but one thing that we're not talking about is a midfielder because last season we had a really good number 6 in Abel Caputo, and we had Yannick, he's a 10. We need an 8. We need someone who's going to connect everything, put everything together, the real engine for the car to make everything go. We need a true, like, all-out midfielder who can handle the ball, deliver, whether it's crosses or, precision penetrating passes, into the back line. We need one of those players, like, really, really desperately.
Yeah, that's a good point because I mean we do need that. And speaking of Abel, he's another one that's a mystery. They didn't officially say he's out. They've not said he's in. Same thing with like Chris Liu Young. Like we've got some players that there's some question marks there. Like what are we doing? Are we replacing it? Are they kind of like working things out? What's going on? And I'd agree. We need to make sure we shore up like that linchpin, like that player that can really be the one that makes the ball go where it needs to go, to kind of connect our defense and our attack in an effective way. Because you don't want it puttering out in like midfield and then you're like, oh, okay, let's just transition back to defense now. And you're just constantly playing that game, wearing yourself out and just waiting to get scored on, because any really good defense is still going to probably crumble under that much pressure. So you need a competent midfield that's going to be able to hold on to things and keep that pressure off as much as possible, kind of like spread it out a little bit, right? The whole team kind of absorbs it versus just being like, all right, everybody, hike back to defense now. So that's a fair shout, Dylan. The concern about that, and obviously I feel like a lot of people didn't mention attack because we have known quantities in our attack. At least, people might be like, oh, it'd be cool to see if we can get another person that would really be impactful, on that final third. But I think people are in this mindset of it, like, at least we have people and we know what they're capable of. So let's say like, this is okay for now. Let's just worry about everything that's a mystery and then go from there, which, I mean, that's a natural reaction, you're always going to want answers. You're going to want to know, okay, what are we getting? What's happening here? What present is under the Christmas tree? And I really just hope that we're all pleasantly surprised. Not only just talent wise. I do hope that we have the type of team filled with players that, Tim, and we already mentioned him. He had a question already. Tim always says this all the time. He's like, I just want players that make us feel like they love the club like we do, even if they don't. At least put on like the face that this is everything you're going to do. Like go through the motions in a believable way that makes me feel like that badge is the most important thing you've ever seen in your life. And I hope we get plenty of players like that, but also have the talent to back it up. And we don't see ourselves crumbling because results aren't coming, and that pressure keeps kind of just pushing us down until people break. So I don't know. I think we got some really important decisions to be made. I'm sure the decisions are probably already made for most of these positions. I mean, we don't have a lot of time to work with, and then nobody wants to just be like, okay, see you for the holiday, and then we'll try and get you guys signed afterwards. But we'll see. Hopefully, maybe soon we'll get some answers. That was a good shout, Jessica. I forgot that I just put that out there. It was like on a whim. I was like, I wonder if everybody feels the same as me. Like, are you stressed about this? Do you stay up at night wondering? I don't, luckily. I'm a heavy sleeper. I sleep through no matter what. But all right. I think that covers a lot of this. That was a good episode. We got a lot in there. I'm glad Kyle hopped on with us. I'm sort of glad Dylan hopped on with us. I'm just kidding. I'm absolutely, that was good, Kyle. It's the little wiggle hand. And then we're super psyched to have Jessica with us. It's going to be nice to not hear from a bald dude with a red beard on the pod. Like, we're breaking the mold right now. This
looks like I need to get some
revolutionary
glasses
moment.
though.
You do. You're kind of ruining the vibe. Like, we didn't want to say this, but like, you needed some glasses, some big frame glasses, like these. Okay. But now it doesn't matter because Jessica just kind of
next week I'll find a red beard to.
There we go. Are you going to go all in and shave your head though?
No.
Bald cap. We'll do bald cap. I don't blame you on that. All right. Well, everybody, thank you guys for listening to another episode. I know we've put out a lot in the last 3 weeks. For sure, go check out the interviews. Please, please, please. The players took time out of their busy schedule to come on with us. And so it always makes me happy when those get listens, just because I feel like it's a way of repaying them for spending their time with us and with you all, so they can share who they are and help you guys get to know them better. So definitely listen into that. Hopefully we'll have some more in the near future. I don't know if we'll ever be able to do a back-to-backer like that again, but we'll see what we can cook up. Don't forget, we have one more game before the winter break for the women's team, our Super League team. I believe isn't it technically Fan Appreciation Night or Day? Now it's day, I guess. It's at noon. Don't look at the schedules that are still floating around that say 7. There's still several that say 7 o'clock. It is not 7 o'clock. It's at noon. You gotta go. I think the club, Jessica alerted me to this right before we got on. There's a email that's out there. I think on the website they even have it, where there's a clinic for kids 5 through 12. Yeah, that's happening the hour before the game kicks off. And there's special deals with the tickets. If you sign your kid up, I think it's $10 to sign them up, but it also serves as a ticket to the game. And then any family member that is taking them to the game and to the clinic, is their ticket's also $10. Yeah. So ticket deals. Yeah, your kid gets to go play some soccer out there before the match. Solid deal. And it won't be at night, so hopefully it won't be absolutely frigid, although it might rain. So bring a rain jacket, at least. Do that. It'll be like the Spokane game.
That was rough.
Yeah, that was rough whenever it started blowing sideways.
Oh, yeah.
Cool, there's no place to hide from the rain now. We're just destined to have it happen. Yeah, but come out, guys. Support the ladies one last time before they go into the break for the winter. Show them some love. We'll get it right. You don't want to miss the game when we finally get that home win. This will be
clean sheet.
The clean sheet. We're gonna get a clean sheet and a win. And Jessica, your husband's not gonna jinx it this time.
We'll do our best.
Tell
If he
Austin.
starts to say, "Huh," I'll be like, no.
Yeah. Shh, Austin. Yeah. Cool. All right, everybody. Well, until next time, keep supporting and come on, you greens.